What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Drew Hoover, and today we'll be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, who just came off a first-round bye, and then you have the Cincinnati Bengals, who just won the first playoff game since 1991. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please click that subscribe button. Also, if you have any graphic design needs, Anthony Garcia is your man. His link is in the description below, www.anthonygarciadesign.com. So let's start talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm not going to try to disclose everything because I will be releasing a documentary, Your Average Joe's First, and it will be about the game I went to with the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Cincinnati Bengals. The title will be called A Day at the NFL Playoffs. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to post it on Friday. Try to promote it. It's going to be right after I post these predictions. I'm going to try to get these predictions out on Thursday. So anyway, the Cincinnati Bengals, both teams I would say play conservative because since it's the wild card and when you have to face teams like eventually the Titans, the Chiefs, or the Bills, you don't want to reveal your cards. But Joe Burrow still showed some of that flair that we like to see. You talk about scrambling to the side, throwing touchdowns. You're talking about throwing it to Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase making those crazy catches, even carried it for himself in reverses. Man, what really impressed me was their dedication to running the ball, again being conservative, but they still ran the ball effectively with Joe Mixon in that game. So it makes me wonder what they can carry that into that game. And then from a defensive standpoint, however, they had some struggles against that Raiders offense. First of all, with Josh Jacobs. Man, that was their biggest nightmare all day, was trying to defend Josh Jacobs, either running it up the middle or catching it out of the backfield. He was a nightmare for them. And not to mention, they allowed a few big plays from that passing game. There were a few times from what I saw where wide receivers were left open in the middle of the field. A lot of that had to do with those crossing routes. I actually killed that. There was a few times from what I saw that they allowed, players to be just open by themselves in the middle of the field and go for big games. Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, this happened quite a bit. And it happened a lot when they was doing those crossing patterns. So it makes me wonder if Tennessee and that offense can maximize on it. However, Ryan Tannehill hasn't had the best year. You talk about completion percentage. It's not compared to what it was 2 years ago when he completed 70%. It's still 67, just not quite there. Also, the interceptions have gone up dramatically. Under Arthur Smith, he threw 7 picks last year, and then the year before that, he threw 6. And we were really considering him to be a quarterback that could take care of the ball. Then he had Todd Downing as his offensive coordinator, and he has thrown 14 picks. Now, the last 2 years, he had a pass rating over 100. This year, just under 90. There's a few aspects to this. One, injuries to the offensive line. The lack of production from Julio Jones. He didn't get a touchdown until the final week of the season. I can't explain enough how much it meant to have A.J. Brown back. And I think back to when he first came back against the San Francisco 49ers on Thursday Night Football. He had those 11 catches for 145 yards and a TD. He meant so much to the offense. And then speaking of players that mean much to that offense, they could have possibly Derrick Henry back for the playoffs. And we know what Derrick Henry can do. We've seen the low and highs, If you get a good defense against Derrick Henry, you can hold him to 100 yards. But you get a bad defense, he's rushed 200 yards rushing against the Ravens and the Patriots, So, considering what we saw from the Cincinnati Bengals defense against Josh Jacobs, if you get a healthy and well-rested Derrick Henry, then there might be in for a long day. Well, that pass rush has something to contribute when it comes to getting to Joe Burrow. They had 43 sacks this year. When you talk about Joe Burrow, he's gotten better with pressure in his face, but that offensive line still allows him to get pressured. You talk about last week against guys like Max Crosby. If you cause Joe Burrow to get pressure again, I mean, I hope we don't see anything like we saw against the Chicago Bears, where suddenly Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn are getting in his face and he throws 3 picks. So yeah, that defense has definitely improved with guys like Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry that has stepped up after all these years. Now, that secondary does still allow a lot of yardage. However, quarterbacks are completing 62% of the passes. I want to root for the Bengals because, like I said, I was just there, and I even though I'm a Packers fan and a Steelers fan, I'm kind of seeing what the Bengals could do and kind of rooting for them. But man, if they get Derrick Henry back, and like I said, they got AJ Brown back, and that defense can get pressure on Joe Burrow, then I think this is Tennessee's game. I think Tennessee wins 34-17, the final score. Again, I'll be rooting for the Bengals because, like I said, I love a good story. But, like I said, Tennessee Titans have the experience. They've been there before. Like I said, the defense has stepped up, and they're getting their playmakers back healthy at the right time. And so, this has been my preview for the Bengals versus Titans. Stay tuned for my other predictions for the divisional round. I'm your host, Drew Hoover, and have a good day, everybody.